Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. My voice is mostly better, but it might still be a little bit croaky today at times, so please excuse me for that. Today we're going to be looking at the next part of reviewing the book Lady by Roosh V. If you don't know who he is, here I have other videos on him and his books. Basically, he started off life as this alpha male pickup artist who wrote all these books about how to pick up women and also spoke very openly bragging about assaulting women, raping women, basically just using women as objects, harassing them a lot, and tried to teach men how to do the same thing. Then, a few years later, he decided he wanted to be more kind of like conservative, fundy, Christian type stuff, and he started writing this book, Lady, for women. But basically to be like, hey, look, I've stopped sleeping around and I want to find a good woman, and you, as women, if you want to be a good woman, have to do every single thing that I say or else. Basically, same message, different, I guess, justification behind it. There's still a hell of a lot of like, ooh, women belong in the kitchen, ooh, women should be my sex doll, blah, blah, blah. And we looked at the first part of his book in my last video, and today we're going to be looking at the next part. These are the last 3 chapters from the first part of the book. That does make sense. I was going to cover this all in the last video, but I was just way too ill to do it and my voice was hurting too much. So that's what we're doing today. So today we're going to be looking at the part of the book where Roosh goes all out, like anti-feminism, ooh, women having any kind of power is bad, and gonna warn you now, it is ridiculous. So enjoy. This next chapter that we're going to be just jumping straight into today is titled Why Feminism? And he writes, it turns out that feminism and the idea of equality in general are entirely dedicated to feeding your devil and decreasing the chance you will get married, or if you happen to marry, stay happily married. Literally not true at all. Admittedly, yes, since the rise in feminism, divorce rates have increased, the amount of people staying single has increased, but this isn't because men don't want feminists. This is because feminism has finally given women equal rights and the right to decide what happens to us. We're no longer property bought and sold and traded by men. We're allowed to make our own decisions about who we marry and if we marry and when we marry. And also, now that women have access to things like more equal opportunities to get jobs, better education, the ability to have our own bank accounts, which up to about 40-50 years ago we did not have. Now that women are able to do that, they're actually able to be on their own or divorce men who they're unhappy with or who might be abusive or who just are making their lives hell. It's not that women don't want feminists, it's not that feminism is bad and poisoning women's minds, it's that feminism finally gave women freedom to do what we want, to do what's best for us, and not just be controlled like objects by men. He goes on to write, feminism has 2 aims. First, it's to double the supply of labour in the workforce in order to reduce the price of wages. Second, it's to weaken the family unit so that women depend on corporations and government, which the elite control, instead of strong men. No. Feminism has the aim of women being treated as equal to men and having access to the same opportunities as them. That's it. That is it. Feminism never says and never has said women have to do X, Y, and Z. Instead, feminism says women should have the choice and the opportunities to do X or Y or Z or any combination of the above or none of the above if that's what they want. Feminism is about getting women access to opportunities, not about saying women have to do this and this and this. It's really, really not. When you see people saying like, oh, feminists hate housewives, completely untrue, complete straw man. Feminists believe that women should choose what happens to their lives. We shouldn't be forced into being housewives and mothers. We should be able to choose if that's what we want to do or not. It's about breaking down barriers, not forcing anyone to cross them. Roosh pushes this narrative throughout his whole book that women have to work now, so there's less money to go around and people are paid less and now we all suffer. And while there are issues kind of like that, they all come back to capitalism and issues with capitalism and how money and the economy works. It all comes back to things like minimum wage being too low and, people not having a living wage and all stuff like that. The issue is with capitalism and the economy, not with feminism. Women working is not the problem. People not being paid fairly is the problem. Before feminism, working class women were still being forced to work. They were just restricted with what they could and couldn't do, what opportunities they were allowed, whether they were allowed to get any further education or not, whether they were allowed to work in the roles they really wanted to. But women still had to work. Women have still always been part of the workforce, it was just always working class women who were exploited the most. And other women, middle class women, upper class women, were often forced to stay home and raise children whether they wanted to or not, and keep a home and all this stuff. Unpaid roles that were a hell of a lot of work that they might not even have wanted to do. They didn't have a choice in that. And like I've said before, none of these women were allowed bank accounts of their own. They weren't really allowed to keep and save the money that they themselves earned. Most were controlled financially by men and couldn't really make decisions for themselves. While it's important to admit that capitalism has huge, huge, huge problems, those problems will not be resolved by revoking women's rights to education, to financial freedom, to choose their careers and their roles in life, to choose their spouses, their partners, if they want to remain single, to choose their families, and to receive equal pay for the work they do. Revoking those rights will not help these problems that Roosh is going on about. He says only a few decades ago a husband could provide for his wife and children. Now, in most cases, both the husband and wife have to work. In the past, a woman had the option of working or becoming a housewife, but now working has become an obligation that is disguised as independence and empowerment. And this might have been absolutely true, but only for upper and middle class white families in Western countries. A very, very, very small percentage of the overall population of the world. As someone from working class Yorkshire, the women in my family have always worked. They've always had to. And they didn't always get to decide what they did. They just had to get involved with the family business, muck in where they could, do what they could. Most of the women in my family worked on farms. They worked as nail makers. They did mining. My mum's actually quite big on like family history and tracing all that stuff back. And my family's been in Yorkshire for like 400 and odd years, something like that. Like we've always kind of stayed here. And there's this one story that stays in my mind from the 1800s about the Husker Pit Disaster. And basically it was a coal mine in Silkstone in South Yorkshire, which was like really, really close to where I grew up. And the Husker Pit employed a hell of a lot of children because the labour was cheap, they were small, they didn't have another choice. And so the kids had to work, otherwise the families didn't eat. Simple as that. And one day in July 1838, this thunderstorm came absolutely out of nowhere. Nearby rivers just flooded, and they eventually spilled over into the mine and drowned 26 children, including one of my relatives who was a 10-year-old girl. Do you think she wanted to be working down those mines? Do you think she had a choice? No, she was a 10-year-old girl forced to work for her family in horrific environments that ultimately led to her being killed at 10 years old. I'm sorry, but life wasn't better for women before feminism. Life wasn't, oh, you just get to sit around all day and nurse a nice little baby and live a life of luxury. No, women were exploited constantly. It was crappier in every possible way. Women and children still had to work crappy jobs to survive, only they had no rights to choose what those jobs were, or get paid fairly for it, or get an education so they could improve themselves. They didn't have that option. It's only today, it's only because of feminism that women are finally starting to get the choices and the freedom, and that scares men. It's not that life was better for women back then. No, women have always been exploited, only now we're standing up for ourselves, and certain men who are insecure and feel the need to be in power and oppress everyone are getting scared by it. Men like Roosh. Weak little boys like Roosh. And that's the thing. So many women today who are middle class and upper class still have that choice about whether they want to stay at home or go out to work. It is a choice for so many of those women, but working class women have never had that choice. They didn't 100 years ago, they don't today. They've always had to work for their families. And that, again, is not a feminism thing, that is a capitalism thing, that is an economy thing, that is a politics thing, that is a working class people not being treated fairly and exploited by the upper classes thing. A little bit of a Marxist in me coming out now, isn't there? The only difference now for working class people, and people who grew up working class like myself, people who grew up with nothing, people who grew up in these families with 4-figure incomes, women like me are now able to pull ourselves out of it. We are allowed to get an education, we're allowed to choose our jobs, we're allowed to be paid equally to men, we're allowed to go to university and better ourselves. 50, 60, 70 years ago, I wouldn't have had those opportunities. I would have been stuck doing the exact same thing my mum was, working a minimum wage shop job, part-time probably, working on a farm, doing what my ancestors did, of working in mines and making nails and all that, like as in nails, like hammer and nails. Weird thing, family of nail makers. Anyway, if it wasn't for feminism, I would still be struggling and suffering and being exploited. I wouldn't have been able to do all this stuff. I wouldn't have been able to get this education. I wouldn't be able to make my own money. I wouldn't be able to live alone. I wouldn't be able to be so strong and independent and happy and doing what I choose to do. I have feminism to thank for that. And like, yeah, I still had to struggle at times and things like, I've spoken about this so many times, like, I never got anything handed to me. I got my first job at 14. I got myself to university by working 2 jobs while I was at sixth form. Like, I worked every hour that I could, both education, physical work, minimum wage jobs. My first job, I got paid £2.46 an hour. £2.46. Like, it was rough. It was difficult. I was still struggling, and I got through it because I had these opportunities, because I was treated as an equal to men. I was able to go to university. I was able to get a degree. I was even able to do my A-levels and my GCSEs, which my mum never got to do. She left school at 15. I was able to, all that money I earned, all that ridiculously low paying money, I was able to put that in my own bank account. Mine. No one else could touch it. That was my money that I earned. And as a woman, that is something that I couldn't have done 50 odd years ago. It's thanks to feminism that I'm where I am today. And yeah, there's still a hell of a long way to go. We still don't have full equality. In many jobs, there is still a gender pay gap. But we also have to acknowledge that life is better for us now than it was for my mum when she was growing up, and than it was for her mum when she was growing up, and her mum when she was growing up, and so on. And that is because of feminism. And as a woman from a working class background who's never had this like upper middle class privilege of being able to choose, ooh, do I want a job or not? Like, my family's never ever had that. I've never had that privilege. I look at someone like Roosh being like, oh, remember when women could just choose not to work and lounge around all day and how much better it was? But I'm like, no, you are absolutely talking from a place of naivety and privilege and ignorance. He is ridiculous. He does not understand any of these big issues that he's talking about, either from an academic perspective or a first-hand perspective. He doesn't get it at all. He's so... I don't like calling people stupid very often, but if you've seen my other videos on Roosh V, you'll know that that is completely okay. It's so odd as well, because you can tell he doesn't really have an understanding of these big, like, a lot of what he's talking about here is kind of like Marxist ideologies and stuff, kind of ish, but you can tell he hasn't really thought this through and he doesn't really understand it, and he's just trying to use like these big words and big terms and kind of make people almost afraid of feminism and placing all the blame on feminism when it's not feminism's fault at all. He says stuff like this when he talks about women work, and he says, there's nothing independent about being forced to do something that virtually every other woman is also doing. And yet he goes on to talk about how men should and can take pride in their careers, but there's nothing independent about being forced to do something that virtually every other man is doing. Is there, Roosh? That's the point. The economy is in such a state that for so many people, there isn't much of a choice about where you work and when you work. You get the work you can when you can, and minimum wage is far too low and people struggle through and have to work multiple jobs. Like I say, I know, I've been there. That doesn't mean women aren't empowered. It means the working classes are being exploited by the upper classes. That's what that means. Because men and women both have to work equally. We both feel that pressure. This is not a feminist thing. This is a capitalist thing. And then it gets ridiculous. He says, when a masculine man meets you, he picks up signals that indicate who you are and what you want before putting you in a wife box or a promiscuous box. A woman who sends messages that she's a feminist will be put in the promiscuous box, and it may be something as subtle as you saying your career is important. A man will then only seek sex or a non-committed relationship with you. It's subtle, but this is victim blaming. He's basically saying if a man objectifies you and dehumanizes you, it's your fault because you put out the wrong signals. It's not him and his warped mindset. It's not him being a massive douchebag. It's not him being a misogynistic idiot. It's your fault because you said you wanted a good job. Therefore, he can treat you like an object and probably sexually assault you. Your fault. It's ridiculous. Another damaging feature of feminism is that it has made it easy for women to terminate their families through divorce laws. Ah yes, being able to safely leave relationships that are wrong for you, or abusive or harmful. Terrible, awful, what a damaging feature of feminism. Giving women the safety to choose their families and choose where they live and choose how they live and choose the environments that they're in and choose which men they let into their lives or don't is never, ever, ever going to be a bad thing. Oh my god, this is so ridiculous, right? Again, this just shows how he doesn't think through his ideas. You already know that if your husband makes more money than you and you divorce him, you're set to earn monthly alimony payments on top of taking the home. Yeah, no. I thought women weren't allowed to work. How is she going to be able to afford mortgage payments if she can't work? I thought women were forced into jobs, but now you're acknowledging that we don't get paid as much as men. All of these things, like, no one divorces someone just to get money. Like, if you're going to be like a heartless, calculating person who all you care about is money, right? Then surely you're better off staying with someone who earns more money than you. Because, like, rent or mortgage or bills are a lot cheaper when you're together and splitting them, right? And then you'd each likely split the disposable income between you and be able to use that for fun. So if you divorce someone, you suddenly have all those living expenses to take care of yourself, and any alimony is not going to cover all of that, plus the disposable income you'd be getting and all that stuff. Basically, you're not better off if you get divorced. You have more expenses and less disposable income. Even with alimony payments, like, it doesn't cover it. You're not better off getting divorced. No one is. And so men just perpetuate this stuff themselves and then get mad about it. It's so weird, because, like, they're like, you can't work. I need to be a provider. Stop making money. Women shouldn't be working. Then they complain that, like, oh, all women want from me is money and financial security. They're so shallow. It's like, well, of course we need you to pay for stuff if you're not allowing us to work. But then the minute we want to work and support ourselves, you mock us for it and belittle us and say we're not feminine enough. It's just, it's a very weird insecurity on Roosh's part, isn't it? Very, very weird. It's so weird because, like to use me as a personal example, I know that when I was with Dan, like 3 and a bit years ago now, he was earning considerably more than me at the time, and I imagine now, because he like sold his soul to an investment bank, he probably earns a lot more than I do now. If all I cared about was money, I should have stayed with him. I'd be rolling in it right now. We both would. It was great. But if I'd have done that, someone like Roosh would have come along and called me a gold digger and called me shallow and been like, oh, all you women care about is money. You're so bad. But now that I'm in a position where I'm doing well for myself, and most men that I date, I do earn more money than them, Roosh sees a situation like that and he's like, oh, well, these men won't want you because you're so masculine and you're emasculating them, and how dare you earn more money than them. Like, there is literally no winning. In Roosh's eyes, whatever a woman does is wrong. There's no way to win with him at all. He tells women they need to rely on him and then get mad when they have to. It is ridiculous. The next chapter in this book is titled Finding Yourself. Something it sounds like Roosh needs to do a little bit more of, if I'm being honest. And then once he's found himself, he can lock himself away from society because he's a danger to us all. He opens this chapter with the audacity to say that all women should care about is basic comfort and having a family, and anything outside of that is feeding your devil. So, according to Roosh, you shouldn't like or do or enjoy any of the following things: good-looking and famous men, exotic lands, fine foods, designer clothing, any luxuries, a career, money, feeling like a success. He literally just wants to lock women in a plain room with a bed and make them pump out babies, doesn't he? That is literally what he wants from all of us. It's terrifying. He then complains about women who have high standards, which is kind of understandable because that's like self-serving for him, isn't it? Because any woman with even basic standards wouldn't be interested in him, so how is he, a man who is admittedly looking for a wife and kids, how else is he going to get someone other than by gaslighting them into thinking their basic needs and standards are too much? He goes on and says, by now, I hope you can see the crime of forcing women to pursue an education and career before having a family. Women have different biological clocks than men and should not be on the same educational and career timelines. If I had my way, women would focus on creating a family straight after finishing high school and attend university only once their last child is in school. This would ensure they don't miss out on having a family from making a career their priority. And thank God Roosh doesn't have his way. He says, I'm 39 and single after spending years finding myself by travelling the world, yet I can still go into a nightclub and land girls in their early 20s. That's that's not something to brag about. Like, that's really, really not something to brag about. One, he's way younger than I thought he was. Like, looking at him and the timeline and the photos and everything, I thought when he wrote his first books, he was in his 40s. Now, looking at his photos, I thought he was in, like, mid to late 50s. 39, like, based on when this book was written, like, 2019, he's gonna be, like, 42 now? I'm shocked. I don't normally like to comment on people's, like, appearances or, like, shame them for anything. Like, everyone ages differently, but also, I am shocked. And two, being in your 40s and picking up 20-year-olds in nightclubs is not something to brag about. This is not something, oh, I got this success. Oh, look how great I've been. No, this means you're a creep who wants to prey on vulnerable and naive young women who don't know any better. This means you're saying, I can't get a mature, self-assured woman interested in me because they want nothing to do with me, because I'm intimidated by them, and because I have nothing to offer them. None of this is a brag. He says, you can argue that it's sad for a man of my age to judge women mainly by their youth, innocence, and beauty. But this is how men were created. I don't think I'd say it's sad. I think the terms I'd use are shallow and predatory. Consider that it's easier for men to embark on a journey that is completely independent of women. Men greatly desire women, but they need them less than you need a man. It's tougher for you to be alone because your nature demands that you attach your identity to either family or God. Well, he is right to some extent. For a long time, it was easier for men to be alone because they were making the rules. They weren't the ones being treated like objects to be bought and sold. They were allowed to get an education. They were allowed to have their own money, their own property. They weren't the ones at risk of being sexually harassed or assaulted or raped anytime they leave the house alone. Of course, it's easier being a man, being independent historically. Men were the ones building a society to benefit themselves and oppress women. Of course they had it easier. Not because this is in women's natures, it's because men designed it that way. Today, thankfully, women have more freedom and more options, and it's becoming easier for us to be independent, which is exactly why more people like myself are choosing it. And it is making us happier. We discussed this in the last video. There are studies that prove that single child-free women are among some of the happiest people in the world. Much happier than married women at the same age as them, much happier than men. Oh, and of course, no, Roosh, I don't attach my identity to only family or God, and neither do most of the women I know. I think that's just wishful thinking on his part, because that's what he wants women to be, but I don't think he's ever actually been around a real woman and listened to them. That's the key thing. He titles this next segment, and this is the last one we're going to be looking at today, Strong and Independent. So he starts by saying, and he thinks this is what people think about him, he can't handle a strong, successful, intelligent, powerful woman, which is true. He can't. He says, when a girl is oh, this is so bad. When a girl is rejected by a man, she preserves her ego and relieves the pain of rejection by bragging about the traits she thinks she has. But these traits are almost always what men don't want in a woman. A woman can never be strong in the same way as a man who would ultimately kill other human beings to protect his family. Are you ready to murder others to keep your family, husband, children, and friends safe? Probably not, but I am. And this is so bad. This is the most neckbeardy thing I've ever read. And this is why I have identified a number of potential weapons in the different rooms of my home that can kill or maim. This is not something to brag about. This is worrying. This is scary. You are not the kind of person I would ever want to be around or feel safe being around. You are not the kind of person I would want around any women or children or human beings for that matter. This is not normal behavior. Planning how to kill people with the things in your home is not normal behavior. That's not I'm protecting the people I care about. That's I'm a crazed psychopath who wants to hurt people. Stop it. Please. This is like the kind of thing I have a bit of a weakness and a bit of a guilty pleasure for watching like true crime documentaries. And you know, like you sometimes see people who've gone crazy and like killed some woman they were stalking, and then afterwards it shows like their social media posts that always read like this, with the like, I've identified a number of potential weapons in the different rooms of my home that can kill or maim. Like, that is something you would see on the Facebook page of someone who went on to kill a woman who served him coffee once and he stalked her for 6 months afterwards, you know? He says, you only need enough strength and oh, this is so bad. He says, addressing women again, you only need enough strength and independence to find a man who possesses genuine strength and independence. This means you should pursue employment that merely allows you to maintain your beauty and ensure you have what you need to survive. Beyond this, you're expending your time and energy on things that won't increase your chances of landing a good man. Well, then it's a good job I'm not working with the intention of attracting a good man, isn't it? Oh my god. I have read so many of Roosh's books at this point. If you'd like to donate to my therapy fund to get over them, you can do. And it still shocks me how he seems to think that the only things any human being ever thinks about in life are sex and relationships. I mean, that's clearly all that's on his mind, and he seems to think that's how everyone else works as well. I don't think he can wrap his head around the fact that other people, we find enjoyment in things other than sex. I know, crazy, wild, pretty much out there, but it is true. Plenty of people like myself enjoy, for example, our work because we enjoy our work. I don't do this to try and find a man. This is not some big, long game to find a husband. I do this because I enjoy creating. I enjoy being creative. I enjoy learning new things. I enjoy presenting my ideas to people and interacting with people and expressing myself. I enjoy engaging with an audience. I enjoy developing new skills and challenging myself, and I find my job interesting and fun and in some ways cathartic, and I feel like over time it's making me a better person. It's helping me grow and improve who I am and see things from new perspectives, and I'm learning about different people all the time. That's why I love my job. I work because I want to create and I want to help people. I don't work to find a husband. And I mean, if that was my goal, then sitting at home talking to a camera wouldn't really do the job, would it? I don't think it would be the most effective way. Ask any woman whose long-term relationship fell apart around the age of 30 and you'll sense her panic. And 29 and single. Not panicking. I had a relationship end when I was How did he have a relationship? I had a relationship end when I was 37, and though I was deeply upset, I didn't feel panicked because my father had his last child when he was in his early 50s. Although not ideal, it's entirely possible for me to take a few years off, start hunting for a wife, Freudian slip there maybe, start hunting for a wife when I'm in my early 40s and start a family a decade later. A woman can't do this unless she pays vast sums of money for fertility treatments that are not guaranteed to succeed. Yeah. No, that might be true for some women, but it's really, really not true for all of us. It's unfathomable to Roosh that I am a woman who is child-free by choice. It's unfathomable to him that we exist, isn't it? It's insane. Like, I admit, I'm not 30 yet. I've got another 6, 7, 8 months, I don't know, like next April, basically. I've got a while to go yet. But I feel absolutely no panic about being single at this age. I feel no time ticking away, no rush. Because I don't have a time limit. I don't want kids. There's literally no boundaries of when I can achieve things in my life and when I can't. So yeah, no, I don't relate at all. And this is probably why I'm so happy. Like, I was speaking to this guy the other week, and he was like, oh, like, what's your next step? What are you going to do now? And I reeled off a bunch of stuff that I want to do. I was like, yes, I'm trying to get my book finished. I'm going to get some poetry published. I'm going to perform at these things. And after that, I might take an acting class. I might take some singing lessons. I might do all of this. And he was like, oh, like, do you know what you're going to do first? I was like, I'll just do it as it feels right and when I'm ready and when these things happen. And it's nice because I don't have to be like, well, I need to do this by the time I'm 32. I need to do this by the time I'm 36. I need to do this by the time... Well, I don't need any of that because I'm just working through things at my own pace. And as long as I'm always growing, it's all good, isn't it? Yeah, but that's just my experience as a child-free woman. Don't relate. But as for the women who do want kids, statements like this are literally just fear-mongering and insulting in the hopes that one day these women will be scared enough to settle for an abusive rapist like him, because that's the only way he can get a woman. No woman with standards would ever choose a man like this, so he has to make them think they're desperate and they have no other choice, otherwise he knows he's going to end up alone. He's a very, very selfish, horrible little man, and women don't listen to it. You have so many other options. You do have options for fertility treatments. You do have options for waiting and finding the right partner. You have options for adopting and fostering and all kinds of different things. You have other ways to get back into the world and helping kids and working with kids and all sorts of stuff like that. You don't need to settle for an abusive, violent, horrible little man just because you want kids. You do not and should not ever settle for a man like this. Don't let him scare you. Not just Roosh, but any man like this. Don't let them scare you into doing the wrong thing. He said, this is so ridiculous. When I'm on a date with a girl, I ask about her job to find out the extent to which she is entrenched in a masculine-oriented career program. If she says lawyer, doctor, or marketing manager, shout out to my old job, digital marketing, I know she will be so committed to her career that she will forsake having a family until her 30s. On the other hand, I jump for joy when I find out she has a menial job, such as a supermarket clerk, because there's no way she will sacrifice a family for that. For this reason, I actively pursue cute women who work in supermarkets. Let me translate for you. When I'm on a date with a girl, I ask about her job. If she tells me she's working in a role which shows she's well-educated, independent, and self-assured, then I know I have no chance and can't manipulate her. She'll see straight through me. If she has a minimum wage job, then I know it'll be easier to control her financially and make her dependent on me, which makes manipulation on the whole a lot easier. It's so predatory. A second question I ask a date is when she wants to have children. Unless she says in 2 or 3 years' time and tells me something that shows she's excited about the prospect of becoming a mother, I know she's not serious about having a family and hasn't put as much thought into it as she has into making money. If you want to turn off family-oriented men and select for ones who only want sex, there's no better way to do so than by saying, you are a career woman who is not interested in children yet. He will immediately place you in the pump and dump category. Now, I understand it's important to have the same family goals and timeline as a serious partner, but he's literally saying here, if you, for example, have a job or a different timeline to him, then it's completely okay for men to behave like a monster and lie to you and manipulate you just in order to use you as a sex object and then abandon you, and that's somehow your fault. Again, victim blaming. If you want a casual relationship and the guy says he wants a casual relationship, absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that. But if you are looking for something serious and just say, I'm not ready for kids yet, maybe in a few years, and he then uses that to say, oh, well, I'm gonna manipulate you and lie and just have sex with you and then abandon you and what, that's him being a horrible person, not you. You did nothing wrong. But he does also realize that there are men out there who don't want kids but do want a relationship, right? There's lots and lots of different people all wanting different things. It's just he lacks any ability to see anything from anyone else's perspective but his own, and it's really scary. This is really bad. Brace yourselves. Instead of asking how you can find fulfillment through a career, it's better to ask how holding down a basic job will enable you to find fulfillment through a good man with whom you can establish a family. If you leave your parents' home, you're essentially forcing yourself to have a career so that you can pay for the high cost of enjoying a Sex and the City lifestyle. A better solution is to live with your parents so that you can devote more of your energy to finding a husband instead of wasting it on the rat race. Your parents are unlikely to mind you living at home, and doing so makes it harder for you to feed your devil through casual sex. It's so easy to have sex while living alone that I've told men to assume that a woman has at least 3 new sexual partners for every year she's lived on her own. It won't take long for her ability to form a pair bond with a good man to be irreversibly damaged. How is he serious about this stuff? He really is intimidated by independent women, isn't he? He really is. But I also had to laugh at that 3 men a year comment and then his whole pair bonding thing. Go see my last video for a summary of why his whole ideas about pair bonding and the whole like red pill pair bonding narrative is absolute crap that isn't supported by real science. Humans, especially women, don't lose our ability to pair bond regardless of how many sexual partners we have. Like, that's just not a thing that happens, and the science proves it. Please go see my last video if you haven't seen it already and you want to hear about that. Then, oh my god, there's so much wrong in that. Please feel free to rip it apart in the comments because I am exhausted. Then he complains about women who want men to do an equal share of the housework and how it's not natural. And there's some more casual homophobia about how men who split chores are probably gay. It's ridiculous. You may be afraid of what will happen if you marry a man who cheats, becomes abusive, or turns into an alcoholic when you don't have a career. If you have to leave him but don't have any job skills, what will you do to survive? First, every Western nation has welfare for single mothers. You won't become destitute or homeless even if you have no family or friends to help. Secondly, the likelihood of this happening is low if you resist the urge to select a bad boy who has shown signs of substance abuse, violent behaviour, dishonesty, or philandering. If you feed your devil when selecting a man, he will provide you with a devilish outcome. You hear that, women? If you marry an abuser, it's your fault for picking him in the first place. You should have known better. Ultimate victim blaming, isn't it? Horrible. Horrible. Most abusers, and again, I know this from first-hand experience, don't come right out and say, hey, I'm an abuser, want to get with me? No, they're charming. They hide their substance abuse problems at first. They hide their violent side. They tell you all these lies. They're so charismatic and kind, and they love bomb you, and they lure you in before it switches later on. You don't always know. And if you are a victim or a survivor of domestic abuse, that is not your fault. It's not down to you for picking the wrong man. The fault is always with the abuser. Always. Also, he's just showing why women shouldn't be with him, isn't he? He's saying, like, yeah, I'm looking for a wife and kids, and he expects a woman to be with him, but then he says, don't date someone who has shown signs of violent behaviour, dishonesty, and philandering. I'm like, mate, have you read your other books? You're describing yourself here. And then finally, we're going to learn about Roosh's opinions on university education. Yay! So let's start this section by me translating a few passages for you. When he writes, in the past it wasn't necessary for a wife to have more than a middle school or high school education because her husband would have had a useful skill and work until his back gave out. What he means is, in the past, women weren't allowed to participate in higher education even if they wanted to, and most working class women had to leave school early in order to get a job to support their family. For example, my mum leaving school at 15 in the 60s to work in a supermarket. The example was mine, not Roosh's. And he writes, now, according to feminist ideology, women who choose to be housewives are slaves, while women who choose a career are superheroes. What he should actually be saying is, now, according to feminists, women can choose whatever they want to do with their lives. They can choose to be mothers or housewives or have careers or both. Women have the choice. He says, to make men accept this change, they had to be relentlessly emasculated until they saw women as an equally masculine partner. But this has so greatly weakened men that women no longer trust them to be strong enough to lead, perpetuating a cycle where a woman may feel she has no choice but to pursue a career if she wants to be materially secure. Which actually means some men are emasculated by the idea that there are women out there who are smarter or more capable than them, and I, Roosh V, am one of them. During this pursuit of success, they seek harmful pleasures by feeding their devils, who have no trouble tempting fatigued and confused souls. Casual sex becomes a habit, making you so narcissistic, entitled, and damaged that you can never properly bond with a potential spouse. No. Once again, no science behind the pair bonding thing. He's pulling it out of his bumhole. Once again, Roosh is trying to do anything to stop women feeling empowered by their own choices and doing anything they might actually enjoy. A woman being in control of her own sexuality and deciding for herself how and why and when she has sex, unthinkable to Roosh, disgusting, can't be allowed, because he's intimidated by it. He says, with millions of empowered women giving up their vaginas on the flimsiest of impulses, most men, including the good ones, don't want to wait for sex. A vagina is not something you give up. Sex is not something to give away or lose. Sex should be a mutually beneficial and enjoyable activity between two or more consenting people. It's an act of intimacy, of bonding, spending time together. It's not something to be bartered for or bought or sold or taken. It's an action, not a possession. And then he goes on all blah blah blah, education makes women feminists, they spend all the time looking at hot men and not enough time learning how to cook and clean up after me. And then he has a little cry. Oh god. He finally says, let's imagine that you skip university and become a low-paying assistant in a predominantly male office. One of these men with a promising future falls in love with you and proposes marriage. You get married at the age of 22 and become pregnant a year later. It is assumed that once you have the baby, you will quit your job, which doesn't bring in much income anyway. As your child grows up, you will have more time to focus on your hobbies. And then you get pregnant again. This is literally my idea of hell. How about this? Let's imagine you choose your own education, get a job that you love, do what you want with your life. Maybe you meet someone, maybe you don't, but you're happy and you're making your own choices and doing what's right for you. That's it. Nice, isn't it? Anyway. That's the end of part 1. This book is exhausting in every way. There are actually 2 more parts to the book that I still want to go through with you. This part was titled You, and we looked at the second part of it today. If you haven't seen the first part of this video and the first part going through this book, you can do. I will leave it linked in the video description. So the second part is called Men, and the third part is called Relationships. So we are going to be looking at them in upcoming videos, so if you'd like to see them, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications so you can find out when the videos are out. I'm also going to be making videos on other topics and stuff, but it's really hard to film at the minute with my voice being such a mess, and I'm trying to rest as much as I can. But thank you so much for your patience with me. Thank you for watching today. I would love to hear your thoughts on everything we've discussed in this video down in the comments, and also commenting and liking the video and stuff really helps with engagement and getting my videos out there and seen by more people. So I do appreciate that a hell of a lot. Thank you. But for now, I am going to go and put the fan back on and open the windows because it is ridiculously warm. We're having this heat wave in the UK at the minute. It's like, last time I checked, it was like 36, 37 degrees up here. I was down in London yesterday. It was ridiculously warm. I think it got up to like 38 at one point. It's supposed to be even warmer today. It's a struggle. We obviously don't have like air conditioning in our homes or anything like that, so I'm having to make do with like a little fan and just like wafting myself, and yeah, it's a lot. Kyra's struggling a bit. She's sleeping in the bathrooms to try and keep cool and cool her tummy down, cool her pores down. I keep splashing her pores with cold water and stuff like that and trying to keep her cool. There we go, see a little sigh from her in the background. She knows I'm talking about her. But she's coping very, very well, and I'm very proud of her. But I'm struggling a bit, so anyone else who's going through this, I hope you're okay, and please stay safe, please look after yourself, and hopefully I will see you all again very, very soon for another video. Thank you so much.